America. When I look at this,
You know,
the freedom.
you can picture the Italian immigrants looking on the deck of the ship, looking out at the Mobro and the World Trade Center.
And just taking in the smell.
Yeah. It's like, someday, I'm going to be in charge of racketeering on Long Island. That'll be me, little boy.
That trash will be mine.
Someday, all this will be yours, son. Close to home today. Hello, by the way. I didn't say hello.
Hello. By close to home, you mean in the dumpster.
Long Island, New York. This is the locale of today's episode and a place that I have a complicated relationship with, as do you, as a matter of fact.
Both of us.
What's your connection?
So my mother is from East Meadow, Long Island. And
I'd be like Rosie O'Donnell on her show where she'd say, "What exit you from, hon?"
Exactly. Yeah. What part of the boot you from, hon?
Right.
In this case, though, she in the late 60s, early 70s, big hippie, went out to San Francisco, road tripped across the country, got there and was like, I'm literally never going back to that hellhole. Called my grandmother and said, please ship me my stuff. And, that's sort of peace. Yeah. She talks a lot about just sort of the rigidity and conservativeness, the conservatism of Long Island.
I'm letting that wash over me right now.
Like even if you're liberal and you live there, I think we're talking more culturally, like in terms of customs, traditions, what is expected of you, what you're allowed to do.
It is. So I spent the first 13 years of my life on Long Island. I was born there. I grew up there. And I remember when I was like a kid, adolescent, I'd read all these like books, like memoirs of like English writers, as in from England in boarding schools and stuff, and say, I relate to these guys. Why? Well, only recently did I realize it's like the repressiveness and the oppressiveness they're talking about reminds me a lot of Long Island.
It's interesting that you felt that way. I mean, my mom was growing up there in, I guess, the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
But you still felt that way.
Absolutely. When I watch The Sopranos, it is at times painful how much it reminds me of what the culture of Long Island was like. I mean, it's the most conservative part of New York, right? Probably even more than the upstate reaches that are conservative. And it's conservative and a Republican stronghold, like even before Trump, who now is like their god, obviously. And so I grew up with some interesting role models. Donald Trump, John Gotti, and in particular...
Okay.
I mean...
Who's next? I can only imagine.
A less known figure, a guy named Dennis Hickey.
Okay.
Now, I'd love to introduce you to Dennis Hickey because he populated the covers of my newspapers, my Long Island newspaper that I grew up reading, Newsday, with some of his antics.
I'm kind of obsessed because growing up in San Francisco, although he wasn't alive, my version is Harvey Milk. This is the difference.
Some slight differences. So we'll get into the differences between Harvey Milk and Dennis Hickey. Let's start with Dennis Hickey on the left here for those watching on the video. He is a lot of, how they say business in the front, party in the back on the hair? This is party all over. This is Rod Stewart's hair.
Okay. Mullets are cool, particularly a curly mullet, but not on this guy.
This is a shanty Irish piece of trash named Dennis Hickey from St. James, Long Island, near where I lived. And this is him being arrested finally in 1996. On the right, we have the front entrance to his estate, complete with, as Newsday says, 3-foot-tall eagles and gilded garbage cans and his name and 2 lions. That's right. Gilded garbage cans.
Yes. I mean, let's drill into that.
Okay.
What the fuck does that mean?
Well, of course, like Saddam Hussein having water features throughout his estates to signify his power, his control of the desert, Dennis Hickey did the same thing, but with his version of that, which are garbage cans, because we're going to be talking about the garbage industry on Long Island and the trappings of wealth that it brought to organized crime at this time, of which Dennis Hickey was a frontman, right? So moving along here, we see Dennis Hickey was obviously very popular in the press because he had all these colorful antics. He had the 32-foot tall rock with a shamrock spray painted on it, which upset the other rich guys in Oyster Bay a little bit,
can you cover that up?
It's gross. But, in that case, I'm sort of siding with Hickey. The garbage truck mailbox at his other house, that is, again, for those not watching, a mailbox in the shape of a garbage truck.
Which was sort of ahead of its time.
It's
very millennial.
Again,
it's like white mail just goes right in the trash.
You see that, I can picture the guy reading news and goes, this guy's a sense of humor. I like this guy.
I like him.
I like Dennis
Salt
Hickey.
of the earth.
Yeah. But that's all to say, right? A constant thing. We just did an episode on The Sopranos, right? And there's all this surface level stuff, right? The fireworks displays that Dennis Hickey would put on, right? The funny shanty Irish shenanigans and all this shit, right? But at the end of the day, it's all masking violence and greed. That's what's at the root of it. That's what made his fortune, right? Because Dennis Hickey's also the guy illegally dumping toxic waste that gets into groundwater. He's the guy bilking people on Long Island, making them pay extra for garbage, right? Yeah. Corrupting town officials.
I'm also just so excited for this because waste management is just such a classic mob enterprise. I'm surprised it's taken us this long to take it on.
It is. And there's a good reason for that, which is that garbage is one of those things where no one wants to pay attention to it. Who wants to think about garbage, right? Well, that's a mafia bread and butter type thing when you have that.
No one's looking.
No one wants to look, right? But it's integral to life and it's a choke point for everything. But today we're going to do something a little different because, like I said, we talk about constantly these fucking creeps and these bad guys. I mean, I gave that list of the Long Island heroes, right? What's Dennis Hickey, Billy Joel, not as evil, right? And then Donald Trump, John Gotti, okay? It's
a really prestigious list.
I mean, and Billy Joel, God love him, he keeps crashing his car into places.
I don't get him. As a Californian, I understand that he's extremely popular, but the whole shtick doesn't quite
From everything
translate.
I heard, he's a nice guy. That doesn't make me like his music more, but we can't spend time talking about Billy Joel in this episode or we simply won't get anything done. But so I feel like with John Gabris' spirit amongst us, we need to talk about a good Long Islander and a good person, right? Because here's the thing. When we focus on just these mobsters, these pieces of shit, the Trumps of the world, right? We lose sight of the fact that there are a lot of people who aren't like that, and it's harder to be one of them. It's fucking easy to be Trump. It's easy to be Dennis Hickey. It asks nothing of you,
Yeah, I mean, once your personality type is in the DSM, it's kind of obvious how you're going to act. Also, from a storytelling perspective, it's like these guys, it follows a similar formula.
You're going to hit the same playbook every time,
yeah.
Right? So we're going to talk about guys who don't do that and what it costs them. And frankly, it doesn't look good for anyone here on this episode.
So when I think about the American dream, oddly enough, I actually think about this time and place. 1950s, Long Island, Levittown. You have your stay-at-home wife who looks like Betty Draper. You're taking the train into the city for your job in Manhattan. You're an alcoholic. You don't talk to your kids, but whatever. It's all good.
I mean, this is, this is the stereotype of the man in the gray flannel suit types fiction and stuff. And, again, very close to home for me. My grandfather was a World War II combat veteran born of Irish immigrants in New York City, returns, wants to start a family, marries my grandmother. They move to Levittown, get a Levitt house, right?
You could buy a house from a catalog in Sears.
That's right. As long as you weren't black, which was the ugly part of this, right?
Yeah.
And
by the way, this dream is a complete house of cards, but
it is, right? And it's so look, I grew up going to Levittown all the time, and like I can tell you, like the good with the bad is like there's a very, like I said, there's this polite fiction going on that everything's okay here, everything's normal, right? And even though I have good memories of it, right, there are bad memories too. And there's this American dream, right, that we talk about here. Like a perfect example of this is what the Kubecka family go through. And the Kubecka family are really our subjects for today.
Okay.
As with my grandfather, Jerry Kubecka came to Long Island, I believe from Syracuse, in search of a better life, right, in the early 1950s. Starts working for his brother-in-law's dairy out in Suffolk County. So Long Island has two counties, Nassau County, Suffolk County, more to the east, right? And he starts working for this dairy. Suffolk County still more rural back then, still surprisingly rural towards the east, right? And the Hamptons and all that. But he starts hauling milk for this dairy. And he realizes as he goes to these farms and these houses, like you can make a little extra money hauling their trash back out. Because they're remote, they're isolated. You can make a little more money hauling them hay for their horses and cows and stuff, right? So he starts doing this. The town tells him you can't keep the garbage and the milk in the same truck. That's a good rule.
Yeah,
right?
Sounds like it's not a great idea.
So he plunks down $25 for a fertilizer truck, an old fertilizer truck, which good deal, even if it was hauling fertilizer.
This guy's firing on all cylinders.
This is what I mean. This
Smart.
is a
hustler in a good way.
In a good way, right? A hardworking guy. And as this is going along, we see our first mentions of him in the newspapers. Why? Because he's starting to get pressure from two organizations. The first is Teamsters Local 813, about which much more will be said, trying to organize the few workers he has. The other, the first of many of these sorts of associations, the Suffolk Carters Association or Cartmen's Association. And the truth, of course, is that both of them are fronts for what organization, Alana? At this point, we know who it is, right?
The PTA.
That's another front for them, only more psychotic. It is, of course, the Mafia.
Yep.
Jerry Kubecka has fallen afoul of one of the biggest growth industries for organized crime in America, and particularly in New York and the tri-state area at this time, garbage.
There we go.
Sanitation.
Let's sanitize it.
It sounds,
sanitation.
I mean, literally sanitize
Waste management.
Yeah, waste management consulting.
Before we keep going, I am curious how they got into garbage to begin with. Was it just a classic, no one else wants to do this, no one's really looking into it, or why garbage?
I mean, I think literally like the fact that it smells bad and is gross actually does sort of repel. This is not nightclub stuff where a lot of people want to be in it, right? You got to be working hard to want to be in it, right? So, but listen, this is a good point. Seriously. What they did on Long Island was they aped the same tactics they had used in New York City proper, particularly in Brooklyn, which is really establishing a monopoly on the garbage industry. And the way that they did this was very interesting. They did it in a couple ways, but the main one is they established a cartel in the same way that we talked about in our 9/11 episode, right? The Concrete Club in New York. If you wanted to buy concrete or pour concrete, you had to deal with the Mafia, right?
The Concrete Club.
The Concrete Club.
We still need those hats, and now I guess we need one that says waste management.
The merch ideas are really piling up here in a way. We need a bit more of the hustle that we're talking about.
I got it.
I mean, you're a gangster though,
I am.
But here's what they did. Here's how they did it. And it would change over time, but here's the rough outlines of it. If you're a garbage hauler on Long Island, you have to either make one of these mobsters a partner, give them a job, kick a percentage up to them, pay tribute in some way, right? Now, 75% of the haulers on Long Island, by the 80s at least, were a part of these trade associations, which are really fronts for the mob and Mafia influence. And together, they rig the bids. Because the way garbage collection works on Long Island, it may vary in other places, is most of it is a town says, we need someone to pick up all our garbage of all our residents, right? And they take bids from companies and they give it to the one that is going to come in the lowest at the best value, right? And so if you corrupt the town officials, which they did over and over and over again, right? Dennis Hickey was picking up garbage in the 80s from towns he was officially banned from for years, and no one cared,
Yeah.
If you do this over and over again, it's because you corrupted the officials in charge of this too. But the crucial thing with this is, in order for what Tony Soprano calls a fixed bid club to work in the garbage industry, you can't have any legitimate competition. If you have legitimate competition, like Jerry Kubecka, for instance, right, who is just trying to do a good job, trying to come in under budget, make a small profit, right? Well, people are going to go to them because it's a better deal.
Yep. So they got a problem.
They have a problem here, right? So the solution is simple, right? And this is from Newsday in 1967. Now, Kubecka, rare amongst what they call the independents, does speak to the press about this, right? He says, quote, his commercial customers were, quote, threatened. Their windows were busted. The union said they'd picket. Drivers refused to cross picket lines. One of my drivers quit after they threatened to break his legs, right? Another carter took over some of Kubecka's supermarket stops in Northport and Huntington and told Kubecka, quote, when you go union, you get the stops back.
Wow.
So this speaks to the other weapon in the arsenal here, the union, right? The Teamsters have we talked about the Teamsters
Just
on this?
a little bit.
Just a little bit, right? So the Teamsters, as you may know, Jimmy Hoffa, blah, 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 bop, bop, bop.
Bop, bop, bop.
Yeah. Something, he disappeared, etc. But no, was deeply mob infiltrated. The local in charge of the trash haulers on Long Island was led by a guy named Bernie Adelstein, who is probably best known for trying to strangle Robert F. Kennedy at a Senate hearing. Now,
whomst among us?
Give me my vaccines, okay? But this is a different time. So this is, Bernie Adelstein is a tool of the Mafia, the McClellan Committee says, right? A tool of organized crime. And the way that he's a tool of organized crime is, if on the one hand, the cartel from the business side can't pressure these garbage haulers to fall in line, right? Well, the union will cause trouble.
Well, the union and the mob, is there a huge difference?
There's some, right?
Okay.
Like, it's interesting. Like, sometimes they do work at cross purposes because in Bernie Adelstein's defense, this isn't always the case. He got good benefits for his members, which is not always the case when Teamsters locals are robbing their guys blind, right? But it's another weapon to enforce control, right? The commercial customers who pay these garbage haulers, they can't switch to a guy like Kubecka because they're going to get hurt by the mob, right? And it doesn't even matter that the service fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Okay?
So how many customers does Kubecka even have to start getting on their radar?
Well, this is the thing. He's coming up and it's just not good enough, right? Like, so he starts losing guys. He actually caves. He has to, right?
Yeah.
He accedes to the union. I think he even admits to making a payoff, right? This is after the union representatives visited like 10 of his commercial customers, said, you're going to get pickets here day and night. And this is in addition to all the broken windshields, the slashed tires, the sugar in the gas tanks, metal shavings in the oil, all these harassment techniques, right? And it's coming because these guys are making so much money extorting not just those commercial customers, but the garbage haulers as well, right? And this starts to come to a head in 1977 when something very interesting happens, which is there is a war. Now, I've not been mentioning specific families so far here, but there are different affiliations. Dennis Hickey was one of the few Colombo family operatives, right, on Long Island.
Yeah, and as an Irish guy, that was...
This comes up a lot, that they loved having Irish guys as their frontmen.
Oh, interesting.
The main head of one of the trade groups who keeps popping up like a fucking plague in the newspaper is named Corrigan. They love having an Irish guy out to do their either public guy, right?
He's gonna get caught.
Yeah, right. And so he was a Colombo guy, right? The Gambinos were the other most prominent, profitable one on Long Island at that time. But in 1977, there's a war where the Colombos decide they're going to take it over. They're going to make a rival union and smash the Teamster control, Teamsters being mostly associated with the Gambinos. It does not work out that way. The two hoodlums who are
the girlies are fighting.
The girlies are fighting. It's really a terrible thing. And there's your quota for the episode.
So soon.
It was early.
It was a little too early.
Too early. The two guys responsible for this union drive, they fail to dislodge the Teamsters, and as such are found dead. In a car trunk at JFK Airport, right? These two thugs. But it sort of damages both families on Long Island. And so the result is a sleeper.
Kubecka?
Well, he's actually gonna do better because they got out of the way a little bit. So he's like on the up and up. Jerry Kubecka is not going to be the guy doing that, though.
Okay.
He's going to pass it off to his son. He's having heart trouble after all this fucking agita.
This is agita.
Okay. Hey, I would too.
Yeah.
Right? I would have agita cleaning my room. Okay.
I love agita.
Agita. You know, that's a word I used to hear a lot on Long Island.
Yeah, my mom says it all the time.
I don't hear it so much anymore. So Jerry Kubecka is handing off the reins. But with this war having damaged two of the families, also going to be handing off the reins to another guy who's not so nice.
Uh-oh. I should have known after all this time, this ancient time doing this podcast, that there was no way a good guy was going to rise that easy.
No, yeah, that would have been a bad bet. To the scum of the earth belong the spoils, you know. And in this case, literal scum entering the frame. We're going to go back now to 1987, which is not the year I was born in. That's ridiculous. Not true of you either, nope. I know.
It isn't true. I'm younger.
So have you ever been on a sort of romantic, moonlit, garbage barge voyage to Belize?
You know, it's funny that you asked, Dan, because I just went on one. Trash is a special interest of mine.
Yeah.
And my husband knows.
I mean, look at me, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You put up with me. Well, good for Rafi for springing for that. Certain heads, maybe Gen Xers, might remember the Mobro. The Mobro 4000.
Good name.
It was, I think what was it? Monteleone brothers, who were two scumbags. It might not have been Monteleone, I forget. But in the garbage industry, mobbed up. This is their barge. With it, 3,100 tons of trash. And no, that's not a selfie. I'm not talking about that before you say that. This is the garbage barge with 3,100 tons of trash. In the background, a previous subject of an episode. You see the World Trade Center behind there.
This is America. When I look at this,
you know,
the freedom.
You can picture the Italian immigrants looking on the deck of the ship, looking out at the Mobro and the World Trade Center.
And just taking in the fresh smell.
Yeah. It's like, someday, I'm going to be in charge of racketeering on Long Island. That'll be me, little boy.
That trash will be mine.
Someday, all this will be yours, son. This is, like I said, 3,100 tons of trash. The plan was, because of shortages of landfill space on Long Island and in New York City, which is interesting, and we'll talk about in a minute.
They'd already run out. Too much trash.
And it's an interesting reason why, actually. Okay. It's another mob angle, right? They were going to send it to Mobile, Alabama, to this redneck down there who said, I can turn all your trash into methane and we'll make money on the deal, right?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Well, at one point, I think in the Carolinas, they dock, and some guy in there says, there's a bunch of medical waste in here, which you can't burn. We can't even deal with it, right?
Yeah. They didn't put it in that little container.
Believe it or not, they did not follow the rules for how to dump 3,100.
Even I know that.
Even you know that.
Yeah. It goes in a special place. Don't ask me where.
You've been retired from the medical waste industry for years, and you still know this. And this leads to an absolutely insane saga from March through July of that year, in which this garbage barge with all this trash is banned from every state it attempts to dock at. The Mexican Navy gets involved to say, do not come in here with that. They go to Belize. Belize is like, I can't Belize this, get it out of here.
I'm kind of surprised they couldn't just pay someone to just be like, oh yeah, I don't see any medical waste here.
It is so, I think what the problem was, really, it got media attention because it is so nutty. And this was the last thing they wanted.
Yeah,
right?
I haven't looked at a trash barge in a long time, but this one just has like trash all over the top. I mean, it's truly a sight to behold. Is that what they normally look like? Don't they kind of hide the trash a little normally?
Like, you ever have to move and the only car you have is like a small, like, hatchback and you got to
And it's all like poking out the top?
Right.
Yeah, that's what usually my plants stick out the sunroof, that kind of. But this is garbage.
This is the barge version of that, right? And the man responsible for this, now the barge ultimately comes back to New York. It's incinerated. It does this pointless trip or up and down the seaboard, right? It's a consequence of the corruption of the sanitation industry. And the man behind it on the right here, Salvatore Avellino, a shadowy figure and an interesting figure. Now, we mentioned 10 years earlier, there'd been this war, the 1977 Garbage War, which kind of took out both the Colombos and the Gambinos, even though the Gambinos won. In their place, the Lucchese family, in the form of Avellino, comes in and begins to dominate the garbage industry on Long Island.
So they actually just introduced a third family.
They had been in the background, and this is like so perfect for the Lucchese family because I think they're to me the sleeper family of the five families. You have the Gambinos and the Genoveses. They're the two biggest, probably the best known, the most lucrative. The Colombos, always racked by infighting, very bloody history, and at that time was going through a civil war, as I recall. So the Luccheses are interesting in that they tended to be the least violent of the five families. And they're also interested in a few key industries that are sort of distinct. One is the garment district in New York.
Oh, cool.
They love union racketeering in that industry. Cool. I mean, cool. Yeah, right? They are big on, as fans of Goodfellas know, boosting JFK Airport truck hijackings, right? The mobsters in Goodfellas are Lucchese members. The Paul Sorvino character in that speaks to the other main industry of them, trash. The Paul Sorvino character in that, Paul Vario, runs his operations out of a junkyard, and the Lucchese family, very big in garbage.
So are they your favorite? Is that what you're saying? If you had to pick?
God, I had to give my ranking of the five families. I gotta go with Genovese number one. All
really?
Right.
Why?
All right, Dan from Ronkonkoma, go ahead.
Ronkonkoma.
Yeah, Ronkonkoma.
Okay.
Yeah, I had one for the topic. I'd say Genovese family be number one.
Okay.
Number two, I put I'm gonna put the Luccheses. I'm gonna put them over the Gambinos, and then the Colombos, and then five Bananos. It's an
just five.
It's an infamia what Joe Bonanno did to that family. All right, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so on.
Beautiful.
That's it. So that was my first 13 years of my life. But look,
yeah, I can actually tell the way you locked in there was a little concerning.
I'm okay now.
Okay, we need to do a cleansing.
So that is the world of Sal Avellino coming in, dominating the industry, and he does something very smart, okay? The gangsters who had dominated the garbage industry on Long Island beforehand have been all about extorting all the haulers, right? They have these trade groups so that they can bilk as much money out of them as they can, right? Avellino does something different. He says, basically, if you're in the club, if you're in the trash haulers club and you kick up to us or you have a member of us on the whatever, you're going to get rich. We are going to make you rich, in fact. We're going to do all sorts of things to make you jack up the rates sky high, and pass the cost onto the townships and the consumers ultimately, and the businesses, right? We're going to make you all rich. That's what Dennis Hickey did. That's why he was rich. He was rich off the backs of Long Islanders going from...
That's why he had the trash can mailbox, the golden mailbox.
Yeah, because instead of paying whatever, the rate of like one...
That was a necessary purchase, okay?
I mean, that was... This is my livelihood we're talking about here, okay? I mean, instead of like paying, whatever, $1 a cubic foot of trash, how about now it's $5, Like shit like that. How about we maybe just won't pick up your trash and there's nothing you can do about it, How about you can't switch to another hauler because there's simply no option because we've rigged it so that you have to do this. Or you fire a hauler for not doing well, can't find anyone else, and then have to go back to the same one at a higher rate.
Wow.
Things like that.
Yeah.
I found one where the township paid double what they were supposed to for 1 year of hauling because it was a 2-year contract and no one noticed. Someone in the town...
No one
noticed. Someone in the town noticed it, had to bring it up like 6 times before they did anything about it. And they did it twice. So they paid out 4 years worth of contracts in 2 years and the service sucked. It's
just insane. You're like, how are they getting away with this?
Getting away with it because everyone's afraid and a lot of other people are getting rich off it, right? And there's no other alternative.
That's the combo. People getting rich and people being scared.
Right. Enter Robert Kubecka. Robert Kubecka is the alternative. Robert Kubecka and his brother-in-law, Don Barstow, take over the Kubecka operation from the father, Jerry Kubecka.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find interesting about Robert Kubecka, I find many things interesting about him, but the first is that he has a graduate degree in engineering. He
looks like he has a graduate degree in engineering.
Yes.
Really kind of nerdy looking guy.
This is it, right? But don't let that fool you. He's a very tough guy, right? Because what he does is he takes over this business that his father, look, has not entirely gone along with the deal, but he sort of has,
He has agita.
He has agita. I mean, he's out of the game with heart problems, right? Robert worked for Huntington, town of Huntington, as an environment.
Shout out my cousins. That's where they live.
That's where my mother and father worked. So he worked for them as an environmental engineer. He enlists his brother-in-law, Don Barstow, the bodybuilder.
Real motley crew here.
This is an interesting crew of guys, right? And they meet up every morning for breakfast in a diner and map out how they're going to approach this business, right? He was not supposed to go into it.
And just to describe what these guys look like, Kubecka, curly hair, beard, dorky glasses, suit. And then Barstow is like the opposite of him.
Yeah.
Like a tall, mustachioed, long-haired
linebacker.
Yeah, exactly. It's a winning combination, if you ask me.
But the Kubecka, professorial look masks the fact that he does something his father would never contemplate doing. And he does this on his own. And this is kind of incredible. He starts just wearing a wire to meetings with carters. He's not even doing it for anyone else. This is in 19...
He's just recording. Pre-iPhone. This wasn't as easy then.
And imagine if he was caught with one of these on him in these meetings, right?
Very good point.
So he just starts wearing one on him. He goes to these meetings, right? And he starts recording these meetings. Why does he start doing that? He's being threatened by these scumbags, right? He's being threatened not just by the Teamsters local in the form of Edelstein, but also these mobbed up rivals, right? Sale sanitation, wayside sanitation, all these fronts, right? The violence and the vandalism, the tires being slashed and all this shit, fires breaking out in one of his dumpsters. He has to get security guards to follow his drivers because they're being threatened. He can't afford that for very long, right? And he's being just threatened and harassed, and it's costing him tens of thousands of dollars. And,
It's kind of amazing he doesn't just give in.
He doesn't. And he goes to this extreme length of first recording these meetings, and then he goes to the New York State Organized Crime Task Force, which had a good reputation, and says, I will work for you guys. He's volunteering himself, not caught and doing
not
this,
to get out of something like a rat.
right? But the harassment is so extreme. If we can see, Newsday covered this in 1983. Here's something that looks like a boring news story. Dumpsters found dumped in river. Well, who gives a shit? Who cares, right? This is part of a Mafia terror campaign, though, right? These are his dumpsters, Kubecka's dumpsters, tossed in the water as a form of harassment, right? And the whole point is to scare him, threaten him. They're getting called to meetings where they're being threatened. They're getting it on tape, right? So this is an important aspect of this also is that Kubecka is promised, one, there are other guys working on this. You're not going to be the only one out there doing this, just getting ahead of yourself, right?
Because, I mean, just because you go to them and ask for or agree to help them doesn't mean that makes you safe at all.
Of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are being threatened as it is, even before they go that route, right? So
what are they going to give them, like a lifetime of security?
Well, I mean, this is the question, right? This is a really risky thing. So the other thing is them saying your identities will not be known, right? We're going to make these cases, do good on this, and you won't have to testify in open court about it, right? And the important thing that happens is Kubecka doesn't just give them a lay of the land of what's going on. He starts to get closer to Sal Avellino, who's really the guy pulling the strings behind the scenes. Now, he never gets a meeting with Avellino himself. He's too careful for that. But talking to these flunkies, right?
His associates.
Right? He starts to get a bigger picture of it. And in particular, he reports back to the Organized Crime Task Force a very interesting detail. And this is something that I think it's not well known that Kubecka was the genesis for this, but it's a well-known story in the annals of organized crime. According to the New York Times, Kubecka tells the task force he's heard that Sal Avellino is the chauffeur to Tony Corallo. This is the boss of the Lucchese family. This is the top dog of the family. That he is chauffeuring him around Long Island. Now, that sounds maybe like a low status thing.
Yeah, it does.
It's not.
Oh, okay.
If you're a chauffeur for a boss, that means quite a lot, right? It's usually a favored protege. It's usually someone who has a lot of sway with him, a lot of time with him, who he trusts. And so Sal Avellino has this nice Jaguar. He picks Tony up in, Tony Ducks, as he's known. Tony Ducks.
I really would like to have a driver, I must say.
I've been your driver.
You have?
Yeah, a lot for this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're rising in the ranks.
Someday I'm going to get there.
Someday you will.
So the bright idea is hatched. Let's put a fucking bug in Sal Avellino's car. All right?
That's a great idea. Wow.
There's a hair-raising encounter where they do install the bug while he's inside a dance with his wife. They break into the Jaguar in the parking lot. There's a pretty decent Netflix series that covers this called Fear City, which I don't think brings up Kubecka's role in this. They plant the bug, I think, behind the dashboard, and they turn it on and they start listening. And what they get are what sinks Tony Corallo at the commission trial about 5 years later in 1987. Puts him away for like over 100 years.
What do they get? Just
he's talking about murders on it. Like he's talking about the worst stuff you could be talking about, right?
Why don't they come up with a code? Even just to talk to each other in private.
Here's the way I view it. These guys are only human after a certain point.
Yeah.
And part of their business is going to be murders to enforce their rackets. You have to talk about it at some point in some form, even if you're careful.
Yeah, this is such a trend in like true crime too, is someone will do so many things right and then they slip up and you're just like, why would they do that? And it's like, because one, they're human. Also, they're often sociopaths.
Mm-hmm.
So there tends to be a slip where they're overconfident or they brag.
I mean, at some point, he has to talk with this guy about their business, right? So that's going to put him away. Now, to me, this puts Kubecka in the top tier already of guys who help bring down the mob. This suggestion.
He's pretty cool.
Right? And everyone else takes credit for it, right?
He should join the task force.
I mean, really, the problem is, one, he doesn't really get credit for that. Okay. Two, there is a series of indictments that occurs, right, as a result of his tapes and his stuff. And they do something very stupid, which is they put his name unredacted in a court document, which is shared with the defense. Right? So now they know that he was involved in passing on the information.
Why would they do? Are they just dumb or?
Let's put it this way. That was at best an oversight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's such an oversight that it clearly wasn't.
And if you want to get into, potential conspiracy theories, right? Like that's an interesting thing, right? But it did lead to, in September 1984, the indictments, 26 carding officials, including James Corrigan, that frontman I mentioned, that scumbag, Irish scumbag.
Trying to remember. Oh, yes.
Yeah, right. And, Sal Avellino is indicted as part of that. He not only gets off with community service, the community service he's going to do is picking
up trash.
I'm not even joking.
No.
Picking up trash for the poor using his trucks, which he gets other people to do. Oh. So he doesn't even have to do shit. So
incredible.
Here's the real problem. Kubecka is now exposed. He's in the open.
He's screwed.
Yeah. And the other disturbing thing is they didn't do a good job bringing these guys down other than Corallo.
So they're all out there.
And the next domino to fall is not going to be a good one.
I'm not too confident about the future of my man Kubecka.
Yeah.
So what happens with him? Do I even want to know, Dan?
I mean, look, we have to kind of face facts here.
Mm-hmm.
The mob is fucking horrible. They're fucking horrible people. They're just the worst instincts in human nature. And they're opposed to anything that's good in life.
Yeah. And how you mentioned in the beginning, we need good guys. We need stories of good guys. Sadly, how does it end for the good guys?
Well, that's it. It starts to end in December of 1988 when a coven meets. I need better black magic evil people.
Bring covens into this. Covens are good.
All right. If you're a witch, you can write in. I'm sorry I insulted you by comparing you to the Mafia. Is that the issue here?
That is. Thank you. Also, they would be wizards because they're men.
Now, wait a minute. Let's think about this.
A male witch is a wizard.
Can
we fact check that?
Isn't that a warlock?
The point is, do not bring covens into this misogynistic, male-driven nightmare. Okay? Leave the coven out of it.
Stepped in it this time. Let me do something a little more Long Island.
Okay.
These fucking three pieces of shit.
Yes, that's better. Let's go.
They meet in a motel, December 1988, in Howard Beach in Queens, John Gotti's old stomping ground. And it is Sal Avellino, Garbage King of Long Island.
Garbage King. That is kind of an amazing name.
I mean, I hope to have it someday. We have him, and we have the two new bosses of the Lucchese family since Tony Corallo just went away to prison for the rest of his life.
He wasn't made boss, Sal?
No. But he, look, he's doing well, right? But the bosses, now this is an interesting thing that happens with when they put a mob boss away. Sometimes the guys who come after are way worse. And that was actually what happened here. Not that Tony Corallo shouldn't go to prison for life. The guys who succeeded him were Vic Amuso, the boss, and the underboss, Anthony Casso, who is one of the biggest homicidal maniacs, just an actual sociopath. I would say most Mafia members that we talk about aren't sociopaths. He is. He absolutely is. And the meeting is to discuss what to do about Kubecka, okay? Because in the time since the revelation that Robert Kubecka provided information on these earlier indictments, right, and convictions, he has been approached by the FBI to continue helping them, right? He has been a witness against mafia-controlled carters, and mob lawyers have tried to tear him apart on the stand. It's been a very traumatic, difficult thing. They've been threatening him nonstop, threatening his family, throwing dead animals on his, like just all this horrible shit, death threats on the phone, all this. And then in June 1989, there's a lawsuit, right, against these corrupt carters. Continuing that, there's a massive RICO suit where they're going to take dozens of these guys out of the business for life, right, and try to claw their money back, right? That's a civil suit by the federal government. It's all piling up. And the purpose of this meeting, of course, is how to eliminate Kubecka.
Yeah, it doesn't even really seem up for debate, does it? What, I mean...
That's...
Maybe they're just discussing how they're going to do it.
Well, that's it. They're going to work out the logistics of how to make him go away. But he's going to go away, right? They're going to go into that business. And important news, which is gender neutral. Thank you. Sorry, that was a breaking news moment, if ever. I'm being past the thing. Which is gender neutral. We had a check from our desk.
What source?
Are we going to get into an argument on, I've been proven right? Well, you just accept the L?
Okay.
Which is gender neutral? I've always said it. I've really said it. Which is, of course, gender neutral.
Trump would not agree.
Well, I believe that Wiccans do wonderful things. I love Wiccans. Man, do not mention Wiccanism around Donald Trump.
I'm really sorry. Stay on the story.
How do I segue back to talking about a decent man being murdered? The logistics are mapped out. They're going to hand it to this crew of losers in the Bronx. What is important to know is in August 1989, this crew goes to the office in East Northport and they kill Kubecka and Barstow. They shoot them to death. Both of them. They had hoped that Jerry Kubecka would be there too so that they could kill him as well.
And Kubecka must have known this was coming.
Yeah. He had gotten a death threat over the phone the day before, called up an investigator from the task force. It had been very lackadaisical response. And this speaks to the fact that these guys are out there and there's going to be a lot of anonymous leaks to the press from the law enforcement saying, oh, we told them to go into witness protection. We offered that. The families are going to say, no, they were not told that, right? And these guys were going to testify at the RICO trial, that civil trial I mentioned, coming up. So
they had to go.
If you have key witnesses, you need to fucking protect them. And then later, some of the Mafia side sources are going to say, if they'd had surveillance, protection, it would have been harder to get to them. We'll never know for certain if that's true.
Yeah, it's like, what's the point of doing the right thing and doing what Kubecka did? I mean, it's not really going to get the bad guys put away or stop what you're trying to stop, and then you'll die.
Or how about the most basic protection? If you parked a cop car in front of the building and just shadowed them all day, you can't do a hit on them, Like things like this, right? And they didn't do any of that. And these two men lost their lives.
I wonder if that's because someone's getting paid off.
Well, I mean, this is where we really get into something, a viewpoint that I don't think I was particularly an acolyte of when I started covering this stuff. And I am increasingly more so now. The kind of amorality of the federal government and investigators when it comes to this stuff, where they want to make cases, right? The witnesses, the costs of it being borne are not necessarily so much a factor, right? They want to make cases the same way the mob wants to make money, right? They want convictions, They want to get what they need to do that. At every step of the way, it has felt like they've made promises to Kubecka and they don't keep them.
But they could have gotten more convictions if they'd kept him alive because he was going to testify at another case.
Well, absolutely. And that's why I think there's an element of cover your ass after these guys go, right? The most shameful part of it is, all right, so let's say you fucked up and you let these guys get killed. What's really embarrassing is the investigation afterwards. Now, Kubecka fought back to the point that it appears, we don't know this for certain, one of the mobsters shot one of the other mobsters during the assault because he was fighting back, right? They left behind a duffel bag with the guns in them. They left behind blood from one of the assailants who was shot. They make a DNA match years later, in fact, on that. Kubecka lives long enough to call 911, give a description of his assailants. Really,
this dude's tough.
Quite above and beyond, right? He dies at Huntington Hospital, where my mother worked, but has given them all that evidence. The most disgraceful part of it to me is that the murderers are identified due to, and this part I just cannot believe is real, due to Anthony Casso, the homicidal maniac underboss of the Lucchese family, turning FBI cooperator. He's going to walk free, go in the witness protection program.
Solve it without that, given that the guns were left behind, the bloods. It's almost like they knew they weren't going to get caught.
I mean, it's like you just have to laugh. It's so disgusting, right? And they offer Casso this deal of the century, where even though this guy has been behind the murders of like 100 people, he's going to walk free eventually for testifying. Now, believe it or not, he's also a nonstop liar. So he's not even a good witness.
Yeah,
they kick
which
him
we
out
see a lot with these rats. It's like
all the time.
Who even knows what intel they're giving?
Right. So, but he identifies the gunman, and they do seem to be the real gunman in this case. They have the DNA match. Casso, thank God, is kicked out of the program, dies in prison later. Right. But Sal Avellino, the main villain of this, can you guess how many years he ultimately pleads to for this?
3?
Oh, that's ridiculous. Come on. He got 10.
Well, I was just going extremely low because
I mean, no. He got a fair sentence for murdering 2 innocent men, 10 years. And he pleads to that. The gunmen also plead to these penny ante sentences. It's complete fucking horseshit. One of them gets to live in Italy for a while, gets to beg, oh, let me stay in Italy. Like, it's just, it's fucking disgusting. Like, they should have buried these guys under the jail.
Yeah.
Right?
That's insane.
They didn't, right? So that's the horrible part of the federal government here, right? That these 2 guys lost their lives. Now, I'm moved by the fact that there is a organic garden, I think in Brookhaven, named after Robert Kubecka, right?
That's sweet.
Which speaks to the fact that, there are other, like, a big thing in Italy is turning Mafia estates into these community gardens and stuff, naming them after the victims of the Mafia, right? Trying to make something good out of this, But I got to say, as we start to wrap up here, the real problem is, and the garbage industry has been cleaned up. So his death was not in vain, right? I think this kickstarted a lot of reform. But when I look around America now, I must tell you, the garbage monopoly reminds me a lot of the way things are now everywhere, right? And in particular, I find it interesting how this garbage cartel, the way it worked, reminds me a lot of big tech. Like the fact that, we really have no, like, all right, it's like Android, iPhone, or you're fucked, right? Like those are your options, right?
Yeah.
If you have an app, it's got to go on one of those, right?
Yeah, it's going to be bought by a bigger company that sees you as a competitor, that's for sure.
You got to pay your 30% somewhere, know? And it's like, if you do something that they don't like, you're frozen out, right? Mm-hmm. Look at what's happened. I mean, Warner Brothers is allegedly about to be bought by this conglomerate who just bought Paramount, who has CBS News under their control, who is going to make it another right-wing factory, right? What's not going to get made out of there? Like, all right, HBO Max just jacked up their rates again. Why? Because they can. Because,
what are you going to do?
Right? The same way those garbage rates go up because you got no other option, right? Netflix, they're going to make it that you're going to get fucking ads for a subscription you pay for, Like, Jesus fucking Christ, I mean,
when does it end?
The goal is to corner the market so that they can jack up the rates. Well, I must tell you, That was the Mafia's game plan on garbage, too.
Yeah, you made a really good point, too, where you said even if you take out one mobster, it doesn't really matter because what rises in their place, often worse mobsters, because it's a whole system. But the same thing goes with this. I mean, you could take out one company and another one would get the monopoly. It's just how capitalism works.
Well, this is the thing, right? The only way to do it is to get rid of it root and branch, right?
Right.
Those big trials that they're doing, those RICO trials where it's like, we're going to get 110 guys out of the business for life. Like, that's the way to go. The equivalent would be getting rid of every billionaire. So on that note, thank you so much.
That is a heartwarming way to end.
Yeah, you know, we gotta bring it home here. And I'll just close by saying we fucking need some more good guys here.
Yeah.
And I hope that's the takeaway, right? These fucking pieces of trash that we talk about all the time, sometimes that gives a false impression, right?
That's true.
We spend so much time talking about these guys, right? And it's like, they're actually not that complicated. They're cogs in a machine.
Not that complicated.
Yeah.
There's more of us than there are of them.
There are. And you know what's hard to explain and what I don't have an explanation for? Why Robert Kubecka did what he did. That's hard to explain.
Yeah, that's actually more complex than the behavior of any serial killer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, I guess he was just compelled to do the right thing.
Pretty interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.